reading out the signals for the Baltimore Colts. Unitas gives to Amici. The Colts are the world champions. Amici scores.
It's amazing, sensational, dramatic, heart-rending, exciting, thrilling finish in the history of college football. California won the big game.
5 seconds left in the game. Do you believe in miracles? Yes!
This is Phil Steele.
This is Mike Burnham.
This is Wes Durham.
This is Mike Ashley.
Hi, this is Chuck Foreman, number 44 of the Minnesota Vikings.
Woo, mercy, this is handsome Jimmy Vang, the Boogie Woogie Man.
This is Coach Fry with Virginia Tech Football, and you are listening to Big Dog Sports Talk.
Are you ready to rock? Are you ready to roll? Okay, let's do it.
You're in the doghouse with Rick Watson on Big Dog Sports Talk, presented by Pulaski County Sports and Entertainment. Join us in the Family Fencing Studios and chime in on the McClellan Chiropractic chat line. He's keeping cool with help from Little River Heating and Air, but this show is straight fire. And now, the big dog, Rick Watson.
Hey, good morning. How are you? Let's wake everybody up on Monday. Yeah. That'll do it right there. Good morning. Coming off of the football weekend. Welcome to BDST on YouTube. Episode 41 today. Hope everybody had a good weekend. We're going to recap. It's our Manic Monday reaction weekend from the football, and we'll talk about it all. Chris Coleman will join us at 7 from Tech Sideline. Phil Elmassian at 7:30. Coach has a lot to say, so we're looking very forward to that. As always, we invite you to join us in our McClellan Chiropractic chat room and hit us up on the BDST Professional Door Incorporated text line, 540-391-0788. Week 2 of October coming up, right? Yeah, second week of October. It's here. Homecoming week at Radford. All right, let's get right into it. College football from Saturday will start in Blacksburg. And Wake Forest comes in and beats Virginia Tech 30-23 was the final. Virginia Tech had, they ended up with 6 penalties. They were stupid penalties, a lot of them. Wake had twice as many penalties. They had the 1 turnover. But, I just, watching that game, I thought they would come out better after they had the upset at NC State. Full throat crowd. I don't know. Did they ever announce, was it a sellout? I know it looked good on TV. It may have been a sellout. I don't know. But again, too many mistakes, too many things happened that kept them from being able to do their thing. But it wasn't good. It wasn't good. And I thought that it was interesting, Philip Montgomery's comment. He said he really thought his team played with passion. Maybe they did in his eyes. I don't know. I didn't see a lot of that. I'm not saying they were dogging it, but I in the fourth quarter, I saw a lack of willingness to want to tackle. But that's a bad loss. Despite where Tech is on their season, you're coming back home after a big win. You were favored. First road game for Wake. And Robbie Ashford, their quarterback, he got the hell beat out of him. But he was tough as nails. Hey, Julian, how are you? Good to see you. We're going to have Julian Brown on here from the Legends podcast coming up. But it's okay to go ahead and just say what it is. Kyron Drones is not a good quarterback. Let's stop pretending that you can't say that. 14 of 28, 111 yards. Now, I know there were times he was running for his life because the O-line hasn't been good, but it's not all the O-line. You throw for 111 yards against Wake. They ran the ball okay, too. They can't use that as an excuse this time. They ran it for 152 yards, 4.5 yards per carry. Terrion Stewart was injured, so that affected things a little bit. But the decision-making, holding on to the ball way too long, not stepping up in the pocket, leaving a lot of short throws. There's a lot of things there mechanically. He's a mess mechanically. And it's okay to admit that. It's not dogging the kid. He just isn't what Brent Pry had hoped when he invested in him. And this goes back to the evaluation of players. Tech had NIL money, right? They based going out and getting Kyron Drones on just 2 spot starts that he made at Baylor. And it hasn't paid off. There have been some games here and there he's looked good. The Miami game last year may have been his best game. When he came out and first started, when they were doing the dreaded dual quarterback scenario, he added some elements to it, but that was basically because Tyler Bowen was running him a lot. But it's okay to say he is who he is. And Tech, as we told you before the season even started, everybody was hitting me up. A lot of people on the text line. Why aren't they going to Pop Watts? Because they don't think either one of those kids can play. I told you that beforehand. Mike Burnup confirmed it. Bill Rolfe, they said, look, Kyron Drones is going to be the guy. He has to stay upright because there's nobody else. And again, it goes back to the failed evaluation of Brent Pry and his first staff. That's all it is. You have to make the proper evaluations. Look at what's happened at Virginia. Year one that they've had an extensive NIL budget to go out and purchase players. And there's no question that they hit home run after home run on the offensive side of the ball. Virginia just went to Louisville. They won back-to-back overtime games as dogs, as underdogs. Virginia is good. Hey, Virginia Tech, you're going to leave Whit Babcock over there apparently. He's allowed Virginia now to surpass Virginia Tech in the state. How about that? You had 2 coaches hired at the same time, Brent Pry, Tony Elliott. This was their year. This was make it or break it for both. It got broken in Blacksburg pretty quickly, and Tony Elliott's going to coach himself into a contract extension. Good morning, Rodney. Prometheus, good morning. Tech goes as Drones goes. Drones didn't play good enough. No, he was awful. It's okay to say that. I don't know why everybody seems to always want to make excuses for him. Why? Are you watching the games? It's not all him. O-line doesn't hold their blocks as much as they should consistently, but they ran the ball. He's had some drops. Every quarterback has drops. I think the defense was still running around, but the offense, especially at the quarterback spot, was bad. Paul, that's accurate. I will say that. Defense playing a lot of inexperienced guys. I think those guys were trying, and maybe that's what Philip Montgomery was alluding to. They got worn out. Wake Forest was just dominating up front in that football game in the fourth quarter when it mattered the most. Yeah, big shout out to the Who's and UCLA. What in the world? How in the world does James Franklin lose to UCLA? 25.5-point favorites. UCLA was 0-4. They fired their coach. They lost by 3 touchdowns to New Mexico. And they put up 40-plus points and beat Penn State. Is James Franklin going to have a job? But then again, people were sending me messages that apparently James Franklin's buyout is $50 million. Here we go again with the idiotic decisions that athletic departments make, these ADs, and have these buyouts negotiated by the agent and the lawyer of these coaches. $50 million, is that accurate? Wow. How do you get rid of that? You can't. Whew. But Virginia Tech didn't play the way I thought. And now everybody's going to get their wish because that's going to end any lingering thought by yours truly that Phil Montgomery would have a shot at this job. Good morning, Troy. Thanks, Troy, again. Troy's been updating me on the Pulaski County Cougar games on the text line, and boy, that's a bad loss. Christiansburg, congrats to the Blue Demons. They hadn't won a game. 34-31. Oof. Thanks, Troy. I appreciate the updates. I really do. Want to welcome two new partners here to the program today, by the way. The NRV Super Bowl, and they're saluting Todd Jones, the bowling superstar of the week. Todd recently bowled a perfect 300 game. Wow. He also bowled a 299. Todd's good, huh? The NRV's been there for 25 years serving the community. Coming up on Halloween, my birthday, by the way. The tradition returns, a Halloween Boogie Bowl as well, coming up. $40 per lane, up to 8 bowlers. Shoes are not included in the discount Halloween Boogie Bowl. Call them up, 540-382-5525. And since 1997, Lawson's Mobile Home Supply has been the place to go for manufactured home parts such as windows, doors, and plumbing supplies, plus installation. Located at 300 North Franklin Street in Christiansburg, James Lawson, owner and huge tech supporter, can help you with cost-effective and knowledgeable answers. Give James a call, 540-381-8011. So welcome NRV Super Bowl and Lawson's Mobile Home Supply. Thank you so much for your support of the program. Good morning, Morris. By the way, how about those Florida Gators? Billy Napier is going to keep his job. Wild weekend in college football. Wild weekend. Yeah, I couldn't watch the interview, Prometheus. I don't understand all that. There's not one fan that seems to want this to be the case, what they're going to do. By the way, and I am going to do the little bit of credit. We kept telling you it made no sense at all. 0 cents looked like they were just dead set. We'll talk to Chris Coleman about all this at 7, but they were dead set, baby. They're going to hire that GM, right? And we kept saying, and I told you what I was getting from the coaches that I get a lot of information from around the country, that no coach with options was going to come in and go, oh, they already have their GM, so I'm going to want to go to Blacksburg. So what did they announce when they sent out that release after the show on Friday? Remember, Will Stewart told us some news was going to come out on Friday, and it did. And that was the news. The committee has been made up. I think it's fine. You can look at that entire committee, but probably only 2 or 3 of the people on there is going to really have the influence for the new coach. And then they announced that the head coach will come in and help hire the GM, which is what we've been saying all along. As a matter of fact, it's almost word for word what I've been saying for the last 3 weeks. So just saying. It made no sense to try to push through the whole mindset of, hey, we're going to have a GM here. Hey, new coach, here's your GM. You may not know him, but you guys are going to have to work together hand in hand since the AD has nothing to do with this anymore. Still a lot of gray area about the power structure. And, of course, it looks like Whit Babcock is going to stay indefinitely. Go Gators, Morris says. The Swamp is a special place. Yeah, it is cool. I've never been there to a game, but it looks cool. I agree. I agree. Paul says, they announced the committee. Here's my question for Chris. And I'll ask him, Paul, remind me, I'll ask Chris whatever you want him to know, whatever you want me to ask him. If the coach doesn't perform, yeah. Who gets fired? The committee? If that's, yeah, right. Exactly. So the committee will disband after the coaching hire, right? They're going to have the coach come in, and then that committee's gone. And if Whit has nothing to do with football, does that mean the coach is going to answer directly just to the president? He's not going to answer to the GM. I don't know. Good question. We'll ask that question. We'll get Chris's take. See if he's confounded or if he has confidence now going forward. Chris will not pull any punches. He'll tell you exactly how he feels. It's like he told us, when he was back a week and a half ago about how he was confused about this approach. And I want people to understand I have never met Whit Babcock. It's not a personal thing. I don't have any kind of ill will toward him at all. I don't know him at all. But to me, it just seems like when you have a guy who did not succeed at the one sport that you had to have succeed, especially in today's college athletics, we said all along he'd never be in charge of hiring a third coach, and he's not. But you're just going to let him float around the department and the programs while football coexists. That just doesn't seem like a good setup to me. That's all I'm saying. And maybe they've worked it out, personal relationships is what's keeping him there. Maybe they've worked it out. I don't know, but we don't have the GM over in Blacksburg, and we don't have a new head coach. So how's all this going to be absorbed by the people coming in that they may want eventually? And I'm sure they're going to ask that question. It's confounding. It's strange. It really is. But that's what they're going to do. But at least they came to their senses and not going to have a GM sitting there and then a coach kind of walking into a minefield of the committee and a GM there, and he's got to come in and acclimate himself and just concessions all the way around before he even gets started trying to implement his program. That was never going to work. And then, sure enough, when they announced it, I got texts from my football connections across the country telling me, see, we told you they weren't – they realized that they were getting feedback already. So Tech's already out there trying to see about interest of certain candidates. No, I don't have any names, but they're getting the same feedback that I told you I was getting, that nobody with options is going to look at that and want to come into that situation. And Tech realized that when they went out and started gathering information. And that's why that release read the way that it did, almost verbatim what we've said here on the program. Thanks to Family Fencing, sponsoring our studios here in Reiner, 540-200-8294, familyfencingnrb.com. Free quotes, no mess. Payment plans, give them a call. Mark Hunley, McClellan Chiropractic, for sponsoring our chat room. Let's hear from you on chat. You mentioned Travis Williams, 38 years in business, Professional Door Incorporated. The text line, 540-391-0788. Right across from New River Community College. They do garage doors, and they are the best at it. Route 100 in Dublin. As always, please subscribe, like, and share our channel. We're making our way towards 600. Appreciate it so much. Remember, those of you that are subscribed, if you get one person to subscribe that you know, that like sports, that are on YouTube, doesn't cost a dime. They hit subscribe. We also have super chats running. If you want to contribute $1 or $2 to the program, it's not inexpensive to run a show. So you can read up on it if you ever want to contribute that way. And super chats are always priority chats. We want to thank Pulaski County Sports and Entertainment, the presenting sponsor of this program. What a great conversation we had with Jonathan Sweet. People still talking about that. Charles Lee, Little River Heating and Air, 1095 Radford Street in Christiansburg. They'll take care of your home cooling or heating. Have to think about the BDST fan question of the week by the attorney, Ryan Pry, 701 West Main Street in Radford. I'll try to have one for you tomorrow. I'm not sure yet. If anybody has any suggestions, just throw them my way. Ryan, maybe you have a suggestion. You might have one. And thanks to Larry Ramsey, National Bank member FDIC, the exclusive banking partner of BDST. Going to a National Bank function on Saturday evening. Frankie, yeah, Miami's good. Miami's good. Go Canes. Didn't like the way the fourth quarter went. Yeah, you're right. But you know what? It's a rivalry game. You're playing in Tallahassee. They had some adversity, but they still won. A lot of teams can't say that across the country that we're favored to win on Saturday. There were some wild results, man. The Penn State UCLA game's got to be one of the biggest upsets in the last, 30 years? How in the world did that happen? Florida at home, not as much of an upset as you might think when they beat Texas. That probably saved Billy Napier's job, at least for the intermediate future. We talked about it with Jen on Friday. As much as Diego Pavia is my favorite player, they hung in there for a while. It was 14-all, and then Alabama outscored them 16-0. That defense is starting to play well for Kalen DeBoer. Cincinnati, big win over Iowa State. Everybody keeps clamoring for Matt Campbell. Well, they just got beat up at Cincinnati. Notre Dame crushed Boise State, and the Virginia Cavaliers in overtime, second straight overtime win. They're 5-1. And they beat Louisville, who was previously undefeated. Chandler Morris didn't play great. They didn't run the ball very well. Virginia found a way to win a game, forced a couple turnovers, but their defense played good enough for them to win on the road. But that was one of those games where, Jamari Taylor was the only running back that seemed to have any kind of traction going, but Virginia still found a way to win. And that tells me they're pretty good because they didn't have everything working that they have had. The recipe for Virginia's other wins have primarily been because the offense is made up for pretty poor defense. That wasn't the case. Their defense stood up. Now, if they start getting better play defensively, sky could be the limit for them. Could be a Miami-Virginia type of championship game. You don't know, right? But Miami's good, Frankie. They're good. Congratulations. They're the real deal. They're big up front. Mario Cristobal's got him a Oregon type of team, I think, with Carson Beck back there. David, surprised Bruce Smith wasn't. He had no interest. Bruce Smith has too many other business interests going on. Yeah, he didn't want anything to do with it. And I still think Bruce Arians is more of a consultant. They named him as part of the committee, but he's not going to be in there in the daily grind. We'll ask Burnip about that tomorrow. He's best friends with Bruce Arians. That's a pretty good source. We'll go with that tomorrow. Yeah, Hokey Bob, UCLA beating Penn State's the biggest upset in prehistoric and modern era. Makes zero sense. I'll just say it. There's no power program in more chaos than UCLA. They've got a horrible athletic director, a horrible administration that don't care about football. They fired their coach. They promote Jerry Neuheisel, Rick Neuheisel's son, to call plays for the first time, and they put up 42 points on the number 6 ranked team in the country, alleged number 6 ranked team in the country, who was 25.5-point favorites. It's one of the biggest upsets I can remember. Yet Appalachian State beat Michigan. Remember that when they blocked the kick and they won the game? That was massive. But that James Franklin is definitely on the hot seat. But like I said, I had 4 or 5 texts. We have a lot of Penn State people that watch the program. They said his buyout's $50 million. How are you going to do that? And again, why did you do that? I want just somebody to explain it to me. Why do you agree to these buyouts? It's ridiculous. Why? I don't understand. You're paying somebody an extensive amount of cash so they never have to work again because they sucked at their job long term. So you can't get rid of them. I don't understand how that became part of the negotiation. If somebody was trying to bring that up, I'd just say, well, then we're not going to hire your client. No, we're not going to pay him $50 million. How does that even come into a mindset of an athletic department, especially today when money's so tight? When did that become the way to do business? Prometheus, yeah, all Wake's points came from turnovers and penalties. Yeah, Tech. So when you say you're playing with passion, as Phil Montgomery said, I mean, yeah. The thing that struck me, they lost their running back. The Claiborne kid was out in the second half. They had no running game, and they still won. It was all on the quarterback and Tech's blunders. So that's very accurate. Joseph, the players at Tech this year that stick with Tech through this year in a total rebuild next year will have true love for football. I'm not sure what that is going to look like, Joseph. I mean, a new coach, they're going to clear out. I mean, you already pretty much look at 30 players being the norm, the average, I think I saw over the weekend throughout Power Fours when, now with the portal, you're exchanging 30, 35. A new coach may look at it and go, we may have to clear out more than that. Is that right, David? David says there's a lady on the committee who headed up Victoria's Secret's online stuff. My teenage self feels like I know and respect her. Really? I didn't know that. I didn't look at the backgrounds of the people I didn't recognize. Eddie Royal being on there is good. Bud Foster being on there is really good. Paul says about these coaches like Weatherman, you can be wrong 99% of the time and still have a job. Yeah. Or don't have a job and still get paid like you have a job. Imagine if James Franklin's told today that he's no longer the head football coach at Penn State. He's going to go, okay, well, I'm going to make $50 million over the next 5 years. Okay. It's been real, guys. See ya. Wayne says it's like severance for CEOs, colleges, and companies just giving money away to get rid of these mistakes. Yeah, it makes no sense. Your mistakes should be enough because it's cost you enough money with donors. And by the way, with this whole decision to leave Witt on, since I haven't heard one fan, one supporter in support of it, that's going to cost them a lot of this money ask that they're going to want from their patrons. We'll talk to Chris Coleman about it at 7. You're ignoring completely what the customer's telling you. And it baffles me. I believe the biggest reason Witt is going to stay now is because they've hashed things out over the last few weeks. That's not the way it was originally going to go. And it's the relationship between Sands and Witt. It's the only thing that makes any sense. Because none of the rest of it on the surface makes any sense. The Georgia Tech model makes sense to me. Massive frustration at the failures across the board. They fired everybody the same day. And they evaluated correctly. Brent Key is outstanding. Because of what they did and the AD they brought in, they are now in the top 3 or 4 I saw in donations and money being raised for the NIL. See what happens when you make the right hires, when you have people who are getting paid way too much money who don't do their jobs consistently. We see it all the time, and they don't care because they're still getting paid. All these athletic departments are run because the ones who aren't successful don't get better because the people are still getting paid. So they're like, hey, getting my check. Wayne, I would go somewhere and have someone jam ice picks into my eardrums before I'd listen to the new Taylor Swift album. There's a new Taylor Swift album? Why? Was anyone clamoring for that outside of the age of 11? A new Taylor Swift album? Whew. I'm sure it's so much different than the other Taylor Swift albums. David says, like Big O when LSU fired him, he said they told him they were honoring his $20 million buyout. He said, which door do you want me to walk out of? Yeah, he did. That's exactly right. You want me to walk out of this door over here? You give me all my $20 million. I'm out of here. You're right. That's exactly what he said. Love Coach O. He wants to get back into coaching, by the way. He does. And no, I have not heard any connection there. We'll ask Chris if he's heard anything new. We'll see. We'll see. But when they released what they said about the committee, verbatim what I've been saying here for 3 weeks, they went out and got some early feedback from what I told you I was getting, that no coach with options was going to come here with a GM already in place. It's not how it works. It goes beyond the Chiefs. That's just enhanced it, John. No way Rick is a Swiftie considering her relationship with the Chiefs. Yes, being a Broncos lifer. Yeah, and what in the holy hell was that yesterday? Broncos down 17-3, looked like a high school team offensively, outscore the Eagles, and in their long home winning streak, outscored them 18-0 in the fourth quarter. What was that? I sat there in disbelief. People were sending me all these texts and messages after. Did that just happen? I had to watch the highlights like 3 or 4 times just to make sure it actually occurred. Oh, yeah, they did win that game. But that was one, too. The Eagles hurt themselves with penalties. There was a lot of questionable. Look, I'm not one of these guys that Broncos already had one game stolen from them because of officials. They got one yesterday because of calls that helped them. I mean, I'm not going to sit there and look at it one way and not the other way. They had a lot of help down the stretch in that game. Prometheus says there are too many moving parts going on at VT for the fans to understand. How can the fans get on board with any of this? Are we supposed to trust him after 10 years? No. You're not. And this move of leaving Witt there is going to create more of that. I already hear it. You hear it everywhere. And people over at tailgates reporting to me over Saturday. Now, I worked all days. I mean, literally all day. We had volleyball. We had women's soccer. I didn't get to watch any football hardly. I got to keep up with the Tech game. But everybody telling me that everybody's talking about it and how disgusted they are with it. David says, Ed O is head coach. Jimbo is OC. It needs some new cash to hire an interpreter. Yeah, you'd have to if you hired Ed Orgeron. Hey, I'm here for it. Bring in Coach O. Oh, my gosh. That'd be awesome. I'm here for it. Oh, by the way, a correction, too, on the story, and I thought that was the case. This has nothing to do with what we're talking about, but it's a random thought. Sometimes that happens. The John Gruden discovery is going to be allowed. It was not shut down. Watch Trey Wingo's podcast about it. He believes this is going to tear the NFL apart. All those emails are going to become public. Gruden says he will not accept a payment to settle. Gruden's already got hundreds of millions of dollars. So that's something I wanted to correct from last week. I had not heard, and I think someone in chat said that the NFL won that case. They did not. Gruden's discovery is going to happen. And the league, apparently, according to Trey Wingo, is scared to death. NFL needs to start being held accountable. So anyway, that's an update. Wayne says Rick can interpret Jimbo. Not sure about Orgeron. Hey, I'd love to get a Black Spring call plays radio. I'd love that. I can help you out there, Rick. I can help you interpret that. He was at the game on Friday or on Saturday. He was at the Florida State Miami game looking like anything but a head coach. Tebow says, most people I talk to seem more fired up about Witt being potentially gone than they were prior. Not sure how well Witt staying will go over. Correct. It's not. It's not going to go over with Tech fans. Yeah. So, Paul, I think it was you and I talking about it. So, yeah, that is going to be a discovery now. You can find it and watch Trey Wingo's podcast about it. Yep. It's going to be good. It's going to be good. Yeah, I think if you heard me and if you ever had Jimbo Fisher on here and we darken the cameras, which would be beneficial for everyone if I'm not on camera, and we were just talking, I would want you to guess which one's which. I'm pretty proud of my Jimbo. So how's it going to go down next year with Tech, Joseph asked. Man, the McClellan chiropractic chat room's buzzing. Is it going to be like walking into a supermarket with a fistful of cash, picking the best junior in the portal? They're going to have money. Don't know. New coach will have to address that. But whatever they end up doing, it's going to be about evaluations, something Brent Pry was not good at. And we're seeing it now with his choice of quarterback. He decided to put his franchise on. Again, it's okay to say Kyron Drones is not a good quarterback because he's not. It just didn't work out. Does he play hard? He does. Does he ever dog it on the field? He does not. I respect that. But I believe he is a football player playing a position that he probably shouldn't be. He could be a tight end. Nothing wrong with that. Let's go ask Logan Thomas. David says Witt walking around Jameson with a GM and not being a part of football will be really awkward. Correct. Like two spouses living with each other who both cheated. It's going to be an odd dynamic, and I don't understand it, and why they're inviting this, I don't know. But then again, it took them a while to come around to the, okay, maybe we shouldn't have a GM in place because now we're getting feedback. Now we're getting feedback from, and we're going to, don't trust me. Now we got two outstanding experts coming on here today. And I'm going to ask these questions to these people. When you get Chris Coleman's take on something, you're getting pretty solid reality check. And Phil Elmassian, I'm going to propose all this to him coming up. And we'll see what each of those individuals have to say about all this. But all I know is I was getting texts from all over people at tailgates yesterday, which I appreciate because I can't be there. And everybody was concerned about the announcement. They were happy about the coach coming in before the GM, but then they're all just confounded. Apparently, tailgates across the parking lots outside Lane were just wondering what in the world's going on. Yeah, I don't know the whole Mark Sanchez story. Apparently, he started a fight and then he got stabbed and he got arrested while he was in the hospital. That whole thing's developing. I'm going to wait and see how that plays out. It's bizarre. Butt fumble himself, right? Wayne says, and Witt part of him and Sands making the final decision. Like what? Drones and Quincy Patterson look the exact same. I think Quincy Patterson was a better passer. But yeah, the mindset's exactly the same. Because Quincy went on, right? He kept playing college football. He went to North Dakota State. He went somewhere else in North Dakota State. Played pretty well. Look, I like Kyron as a dude. And he plays hard. He does. He feels the losses. He's out there for the right reasons, not just the money. He's just not the guy at that position. That's all. We have enough evidence now, right? Is he going to have a good game or two down the stretch? Of course he will. He'll make some good throws and he'll make some. But overall, you can't have a game like that against a team like Wake Forest. You can't go 14 of 28 for 111 yards. But again, it's evaluation. The receivers that they've brought in, other than Jalen Lane, who was already established, though, it was a good get in the sense they got him to come to Tech. And now he's playing well in the NFL. Same thing for Bashal Tootin, who we'll see tonight against the Chiefs. Like, the only reason I'm going to watch that, stay up a little bit, I want to watch Bashal Tootin tonight. Love that kid. Go Jags. But they didn't evaluate receivers. Remember, we kept being told Ali Jennings. If you want to see probably a textbook case and you wanted to investigate it and you wanted to find one player who was as hyped as any player that he came in under the Pry era that never, and I mean never, got off the ground, it's Ali Jennings. How did that fail so badly? John says, last time Wake won at Virginia Tech, I was in high school. At this point, you play youth, right? Try to keep them for next year unless coaches are trying to make the resume. I don't think there's any decisions being made right now, especially after the result Saturday, worried about next year. There's nobody on this staff likely going to be there, maybe a handful, maybe a few next year. It's about getting through this year. It's going to be up to those individual kids. A new coach is going to come in first, properly, evaluate it all, and have some hard meetings with these kids. Because we don't know if anybody in place is going to fit into a system a new coach is going to want to implement. They're not coaching anything for next year. This roster, as you know it, will not exist next year. And it shouldn't. It shouldn't. The new coach deserves the opportunity to do that. Now he's going to have the money to do that. Yeah, he's an inaccurate thrower. He doesn't step into the pocket. He holds the ball way too long. I know there's a lot of sacks, and people want to point in the offensive line, but John Madden many years ago said that he tracked it for a couple of seasons in the NFL, and about 70% of quarterback sacks are on the quarterback, not on the offensive line. And Drones is one of those guys. He just holds and holds and holds because I think he always believes he can run out of problems, and that's not always the case. Teams have finally adapted to him running. But when people ask me about the other quarterbacks, at this point, I agree with you, Prometheus. You might as well see if any of them can give you a spark. All I know is people over there on that staff before the season, Bob Watson has regressed every year he's been in Blacksburg. That's what I've been told. He would already be out there if they thought he could play the game. I mean, actions, right? Or in this case, lack of actions. But I do, though, the one part of what you said, Wayne, is true. I think you're going to see younger guys play, but I don't think it has much bearing on next year. Oh, yeah, he cashed in. He did. He cashed in. Because there's no performance clauses. If you're playing, and this is what's got to change with these contracts too, and at some point it will evolve into that, like it is in all the other pro sports leagues. There's going to be incentives there. They'll center around academic responsibility. Like they're still putting on the guys as if the academic part really matters. So they'll do that. But, yeah, as long as he's out there and he's participating, he's going to get paid. It's not about wins. It's not about how many touchdowns, he's going to get paid. Yeah, you throw out academics in big-time football. Let's just stop trying to pretend about things that don't exist anymore. All these guys have to do is get through the first semester, football and basketball. That's all they have to do to remain eligible. Because most of them, well, a lot of them are going to be wanted out anyway. Doesn't matter what happens in the spring, because then they'll be done with their sport, and hopefully they take enough personal pride to go out and either get their degree or keep their grades up to go somewhere else. If not, they don't care. They don't care. So anyway, we'll ask a lot of these things to Chris Coleman. I just want to get his take on all this as he's assessed it. Maybe he's made some sense about what they're going to try to do with WIT. I know a lot of people want to know. And he'll have a good vibe about it. Maybe I'm missing something on it, but I'm just going by the reaction from what people are telling me. I got a text from a source that I trust a whole lot that said, with this decision, there's no way Virginia Tech's going to come close to meeting the ask goal that they're going to have to get to the total payout of what the board agreed to last Monday. This is where, again, the customer, the investor, if they don't like what your company is deciding, they're going to stop investing. If they project a downward trend in your market cap, they're going to stop investing. So this person has been very accurate about everything that I've ever gotten from it. So that means those conversations are already being had or have already been had. The Tech seems to be going this way because that's what they want to do. David says, I highly doubt, ma'am, he's worried about Beck's academics. Correct. As long as they get him through. Correct. Maybe Drones has a buyout. No, they haven't done that yet. I haven't heard of any player buyouts yet at the collegiate level. Yeah, it's not just Drones' inaccuracy. It's the little thing like sliding 3 yards short of a first down. Yeah, and short-arming throws because he won't step into the throw, won't step into the pocket. That happens a lot. And that's why he overcompensates and overthrows a lot of receivers, because he's doing it from just an awkward kind of torque angle when he throws. The only guarantees in life are Rick likes his meat. No, medium rare. Never rare, medium rare. Not even I like it rare. Yeah, don't put any sauces on your ribeye. You've done it wrong if you have to add sauce. Selma Hayek, yes. And my favorite band is Queen. Correct. And Susanna Hoffs is a hell of a 1A. Selma, Susanna, and Monica Bellucci. That's my three. Oh, by the way, it's Manic Money, so we got to do this, right? There we go. Speaking of 1A, there she is. There you go. Everybody remembers that little eye shift right there during walking like an Egyptian. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, that's a good point. I got a message here on the Professional Door Incorporated text line. Sands isn't worried about fans wanting Witt gone. His contract's in 2027. What does he care? That might be true. He just wants to make sure he keeps his friend around. Yeah, that's a great point. You're looking at less than 2 years. Yeah, that could be accurate. You could be 100% accurate with that. That makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I don't know, Tebow, how the Broncos won that. That is just bizarre. The Cardinal game, the NFL showed a lot of what's wrong with it yesterday. You had the guy drop a ball again before he crossed the goal line. Why? The culture in the NFL, it continues to get worse. This whole celebratory thing the defenses did, they're allowed to run down. It's at least they stopped showing it nearly as much. It's just stupid. Everybody has to celebrate every tackle. It's starting to infiltrate pretty badly in the collegiate game. I saw a lot of warnings. Did you see how many warnings there were in the Tech game? It was so many that as I had it on when I was at Radford, I'm like, you saw they didn't throw flags, but you saw them going over going, stop, what are you doing? You get a stop on first down, like an incompletion, and the defensive back who was in the area, he may not have even made a play, is doing all this. What are we doing? It's second down. You still have to go out and defend at least 2 more downs. Make a tackle, get up and do all this pontificating. Just stop. The NFL encourages that. And it's coming down into the collegiate game because those guys watch NFL games. Saw a lot of it. Maybe because I was looking for it. When I got home, in the Miami-Florida State game was the game I primarily was watching. There's a lot of it going on there too. But I saw a lot of it in Tech and Wake from both sides. It wasn't one team. It feels like, Frankie, your Canes this year have their best shot to win the ACC. They never won it, which is mind-boggling. But, it feels like this could be their year. Could be their year. It's always the year for Family Fencing. They sponsor our studios. Locally owned, finance options available. 540-200-8294. No dig installation system, no mess. All the materials you're ever going to want. Doesn't matter what kind of fencing. Check them out. McClellan Chiropractic, Mark Hundley, right off of Peppers Ferry Road. The chat room buzzes, Mark. You get a lot of pub, my friend. Chat room is going absolutely nuts each and every day. We're presented every day by Pulaski County Sports and Entertainment. Thank you very much. Jonathan Sweet, Tim Miller and Company. I'm going to tell you about a lot of things coming out in their new newsletter, get you updated what's going on there. Charles Lee, Little River Heating and Air, 1095 Radford Street in Christiansburg. The attorney Ryan Pry, 701 West Main Street in Radford. I haven't come up with the BDST question of the week, Ryan. I might need your help. Help me this week. We'll have one tomorrow. We'll have it announced tomorrow. Okay. National Bank, member FDIC, thanks to Lara Ramsey, exclusive banking partner of the program. And they've been my bank forever. And Travis Williams Professional Door Incorporated, right here. The text line, 540-391-0780. Love hearing from everybody during college football Saturday. I get a lot of texts during college football Saturday. 38 years in business, garage doors, better than anyone. Lawson's Mobile Supply, welcome to them here on the program today. And the NRV Super Bowl. Congratulations, Todd Jones, the bowling superstar of the week. You kidding me? 300 game and a 299? Probably take me 5 games of bowling just to add up to $5.99. Wow. Chris Coleman going to join us here at the top of the hour from Tech Sideline. Let's go and get caught up here in our chat room. No way I would have a backup quarterback that I'd be afraid to put in. Yeah. Yep. Brent Pry put all of his eggs into the an unproven commodity like Kyron Drones. He saw something in, what did he make, 2 starts at Baylor? And he based his whole program on it. And now he's out of a job. I've never understood teams that suck put their showboating, it's bringing down the game. It's ridiculous. It's just dumb. Belinda Carlisle, Yeah, clearly, but not in my top echelon. I mean, yes, especially later, the solo career when the music got really bad. Like she had really crappy music, but she was attractive and she did have a really nice voice, but she remarketed herself. So yes, absolutely. Don't say that I'm, but no, she's not in the top 3. No. Wayne, you might have to deal with UVA and ACC title game with their schedule. Should be easier down the stretch. Just drive the knife into Tech season even more. Yeah, that's right. Under Whit Babcock's watch, UVA has now bounced back and surpassed them. Canes have one problem. Crisco Grease has the propensity to make the worst call ever in the history of football. It's true. We haven't seen the Mario Cristobal faux pas yet. When he tries to get a little too cute. Chat's bringing it strong today. Phil Elmassian joins us coming up about 7:30. You're going to really enjoy that. And you're going to enjoy our next guest because many of you have wanted to have this next gentleman back on. And there he is from Tech Sideline. And there's nobody who analyzes football that I know any better than this guy, Chris Coleman. Chris, how are you, brother? Thanks for jumping on, man.
Yeah, no problem. How are you guys doing?
Doing okay, man. Well, let's just get right to it. Before we get to Saturday, let's go back to last Friday. Will Stewart was on. He said some news was going to come out, and sure enough, they came to their senses a little bit and announced the GM is going to be hired after the coach. But the committee was named. And what was your first reaction when you saw the names that were on that list?
Oh, I would say it's a little bit bigger than I thought it would be. I figured it would be, 3 to 5 or something like that. I didn't assume it would be 8. Yeah. I didn't know Arians would be on the committee or just a consultant. But really when it came out, except for the overall numbers, the names themselves did not surprise me.
Looks like a pretty good group. I think the football people that are on there probably have a lot more say. It feels like the other committee's going to go, whatever you can say, guys, go ahead.
I think they're going to lean on Arians and Bud quite a bit.
Yes.
And maybe even some others that they aren't talking to, or that they aren't officially on the committee. Right. So, I think things will obviously it'll take a while before they progress. I mean, you're speaking behind the scenes right now, but no prospective coach is going to be ready to out and out say, I'll give you my word right now that I'll definitely move to Virginia Tech in December. Right.
Right.
So there's going to be a whole process to this thing. You're going to hear some funny things some days and they'll make you feel good. You'll hear some things the next day that make you feel bad. You got to remember a lot of this stuff is agent driven. The stuff that you hear in the media with agents dropping their clients' names. You could have like one agent have 2 clients and one of his clients is going to get the Virginia Tech job and the other one is not. So he drops his other client's name to try to get his clients a raise at the school that he's at now, all this sorts of stuff. And that's the type of stuff that Whit Babcock is good at handling. And ultimately, in my opinion, that's why he's still here. It's because there's nobody else at Virginia Tech really capable of handling that type of stuff. He's on a good relationship with agents, and he's able to go back to the committee and say, here's what's going on. Here's why that name was dropped. Here's the process, et cetera, et cetera. He's not going to be a decision maker in this, even if the press release said he is one of the final 3. I think that's more covering your bases. They look down at North Carolina and they see that lawsuit that's going on right now when their board basically went behind the back of their athletic director to hire a football coach without telling him. And, you have to do things, or at least appear to do things by the book, or else you risk things like that. So I think they've made it a point to put it out there that they're doing things exactly by the book, even if maybe they're not quite doing it right by the book behind the scenes.
Right. Well, how do you see this coexisting? The biggest question I've had for people, please ask Chris, in his mind, I haven't heard one fan that likes the fact that he's staying. And I'm not exaggerating. I haven't heard one person go, that's a really good idea.
I agree. Yeah.
So how do you see this working? And as a new coach, what do you think that the agent and the coach are going to go, okay, but who am I exactly answering to? The committee's going to be disbanded. I've been hired. Mm-hmm. The GM's going to be somebody I pick. So how's this going to work? It just seems like they're creating a lot of mess.
Yeah, I mean, it's why this whole process should have started in the spring. Any prospective coach would prefer to have a decent idea of who their athletic director is going to be. So if this process had started in the spring, you have a new athletic director on July 1st, none of these questions are getting asked at that point because you have an athletic director firmly in charge leading the search process. But because that process didn't start earlier, now you kind of have to do a whole bunch of things at the same time. So it is not ideal, but I'm pretty sure I'd be shocked if any of those prospective coaches or their agents weren't told, look, your athletic director is not going to be Babcock. He's just going through the motions right now, and he's our point man, or he's our communications man,
right,
between the committee and the coach / agent, but he's not going to be your athletic director long-term at Virginia Tech. I think that's how it's being handled. Now, again, that's not the preferred way. The preferred way is to have a new AD in this past summer,
right?
And he's leading the charge, and you don't even have a committee at that point, or not much of one at least. So it was botched from that standpoint. I don't know. I don't know why, and to this day, I lay awake at night wondering how grown-ups can mismanage that situation. But we are where we're at right now, and there's just not a lot of other ways you can go about it because, look, nobody else in the athletic department is actually capable of running the show on a day-to-day basis. I mean, daily running of the athletic department. And that's another indictment of Witt because it just shows he's staffed his athletic department poorly. But
right,
if you fired Witt right now, then every press release you get, it wouldn't be saying athletic director Witt Babcock, rector John Rokovich, president Tim Sands. It'd be saying interim athletic director John Boleyn, right?
Yeah.
Tim Sands and Rokovich will make the final determination, which would be even worse for Virginia Tech fans.
Yeah.
If it was Boleyn on there, I think. So it's frustrating. I agree 100%. It should have been handled differently from the beginning, but with where we're at right now, I don't know that there's another way you can go about it.
Chris Coleman joining us from Tech Sideline, and that's a great point. And maybe that's just because maybe they've come to that realization we didn't do this right. So there's nobody here. Maybe Witt understands he is going to retire shortly after. Who knows, right? We don't know that. Maybe they're just handling this way now, like you say, for the transition, and then he's going to be allowed. Who knows? There's just a lot of speculation about that too, but that makes a lot of sense, what you said.
Yeah. And again, man, it's one of those things. You could see it coming from a mile away because Pry did not have a good tenure at Virginia Tech coming into this season. It's not like he had done a great job, and then all of a sudden you lose to get smacked by Vandy and ODU, and you're like, oh my gosh, we have to fire the football coach. We didn't see this coming. Right, exactly. You knew going into the season that this was a possibility. I think they were surprised that it became a possibility as early as it did. I think that's definitely true. Now, they might have had a plan in place to maybe get an athletic director or something in by December or beginning of November, and then hire a football coach if need be, right? I don't think anybody, myself included, would have ever expected they would have had to fire the football coach after the third game of the season. If you did, maybe you're thinking it happens in November or maybe even right at the end of the season. But third week of September is just about unprecedented. I think UCLA beat us by an hour.
That's right. They did. Yeah.
Try to set new records out there, man. What can you say?
Yeah, there you go. Well, it's going to be interesting. I do like a fact, and I kept getting told by coaches across, that, hey, no head coach with options was going to say, okay, the GM's in place. I don't know if I'm going to look at Tech as being as attractive. So I'm glad to see they at least changed that around to where the head coach is going to be there as part of that whole process with the GM.
I think that's something that they've learned. I remember when, Arians went on the Pat McAfee show and said, we're going to hire a GM first and get him in charge of football.
Yeah.
I expect they got some feedback from agents by that. Okay, yeah, Coach A'd be interested, but he wants his own guy at GM, right? So it was unclear to me, like, how the whole flow chart would work. Would the GM be reporting to the athletic director? Would he be reporting to a board? I don't know. Now it just seems like whoever the GM is, he's going to be kind of a GM as we know it now. And we're in college, for the most part, it's reversed. Like, your GM is under the head coach as opposed to the other way around, like it is in the NFL. So, but you're seeing different programs try different things. Stanford, you've got the GM who's above the head coach.
Right.
Right. So with Andrew Luck. So, and I want to say like at Ole Miss, maybe even it's something like that. But for most places, that GM is basically like just more like a player personnel guy. They just call him a GM.
Yeah, that and it makes sense that they got the hierarchy right, at least that way. We'll see how the other stuff plays out. Well, your thoughts on the game? I thought they would come out a little more spirited and ready because of the big upset. They had a nice crowd there, homecoming and everything. And your thoughts on how that unfolded with Wake? And they didn't even have the running back in the second half, but Tech just kept on making mistakes at the worst time, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, they absolutely did. I was expecting a close game. I picked 27-20 Tech. And when it comes right down to it, if Virginia Tech had scored a touchdown when they got it to the 4-yard line after the interception, they would have scored 27 points. So there's my 27, right? I can justify that. They handed Wake Forest a bunch of points. They handed them anywhere from 13 to 17 points, depending on whether they would have kicked a field goal on one of those drives when Tech had the third down penalty. But, Ben Bell with another roughing the passer. You got pushing them out of bounds late.
Yeah.
The offsetting penalty on the field goal, which they missed, which gave them another opportunity. It's just any game Virginia Tech wins this year is probably going to be close. You don't see that offense blowing teams out. So that means you have to play clean football. You have to take care of the little things. You have to avoid turnovers, and you have to avoid penalties. The crazy thing is Wake Forest had more penalties for more yards than Virginia Tech in that game. It's just Virginia Tech's penalties were at critical times. There's nothing worse than a third down penalty. There's nothing worse than a penalty that lets them re-kick a field goal. It's just a comedy of errors almost. And I think Phil Montgomery's done a good job in a short time period, but Tech has had those issues for so long that it's going to take an entire off season to really root that out of them. That's where it starts, in my opinion. I think there's going to be some weeks where you feel good about it, and other weeks you're going to be like, oh, same old Tech. And unfortunately, this past week in a winnable game, it was same old Tech.
Same old Tech. Do you anticipate, had people ask, a lot of younger guys going to continue to play? I mean, they were asking about next year, but I don't think any coach on that staff right now is worried about next year, because next year is going to look totally different, right? They're just trying to figure out the best 22 to put out there every Saturday.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think when you look at it, Sheldon Robinson at safety is one of their best three safeties right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're missing their top two cover safeties.
Yeah.
In Reddish, and then Ellis, who made the big plays down at NC State and was terrific in coverage. He was out this past week too. So you're missing your top two cover safeties, and that's how Wake won the football game, is by hitting some. Well, besides Virginia Tech penalties, that's how Wake won the football game, by hitting big plays in the passing game. A lot of times between the linebackers and the safeties. I think Noah Chambers has been really good at linebacker. I mean, I think over the last 2 weeks, he's been Virginia Tech's best linebacker. So now I think it's a little bit more than, do you play the freshman or do you redshirt them? Well, I think those guys are arguably your best players now. So, yeah, you're definitely playing them now.
Yeah, right. Chris Coleman joining us from Tech Sideline. The Hokies now have to travel to Atlanta, take on a very well-rested Georgia Tech team, and they're any surprise to see the 14.5 to 15-point spread early?
Not a surprise at all. I figured you knew it would be double digits. The crazy thing is, like, Georgia Tech has made a living under beating ranked teams under Brent Key. I think they're only 16-14 against unranked teams. So they lose to enough unranked teams to make the ranked teams overlook them, right? And I'm not trying to take anything away from them, but it's weird to be, 8-1 against ACC ranked opponents, but only like 16-14 overall against unranked teams. That's just strange. Look, and you saw it in their last game. They almost lost to Wake Forest.
That's right.
Should have lost it. The referees botched that offsides call or non-offsides call or whatever it was. I mean, then that should have basically ended the football game right now, and they just blew it. So they wouldn't be ranked right now, most likely, if the refs hadn't blown that. That was a ranked team or an unranked team in Wake Forest. So there's not a number next to Virginia Tech's name. So they've got a better chance to win this game than people think, in my opinion. It doesn't make a lick of sense, but that's the way it is. I do think they're a tough matchup because they run the style of offense where the quarterback can run it and throw it. And we've saw we saw that against Vanderbilt, and we saw that against Old Dominion, and how that can give this Virginia Tech defense some trouble. This Tech defense is good at stopping the traditional running game.
Yeah, it is.
They've been very good, but it's just when they kind of get doubled up on there with the quarterback and the running back that's giving them some difficulties.
Well, and Wayne in chat just said something I was going to ask you about. Tech can't defend its home field anymore. I mean, they can't beat FBS schools at home, but they go on the road, and like they did at NC State, right? And they seem to be playing better on the road. What has happened? I mean, I know they haven't been great, but what has happened to Lane Stadium and that environment in terms of teams don't come in? They want to play there now,
Yeah. I mean, Wake Forest isn't going to play in many better environments than Lane Stadium. I don't know what their road schedule is this year in the ACC, but unless they're going to Clemson or Florida State, I mean, they're not going to be playing in as good as atmosphere all year. Even if they play at Miami, that place won't be filled up like Lane Stadium, and their fans won't be making as much noise. It won't be like a real college atmosphere. Obviously, the same for Old Dominion, right? Little different for Vandy because they'll play a bunch of SEC road games. Right. But, you look at the schedule every year, and every time Georgia Tech comes to Blacksburg, it's going to be one of the best atmospheres they face. Every time Clemson comes to Blacksburg, it's going to be one of the best road atmospheres they face all year. There's so many poor atmospheres in the ACC because there's so many small private schools that when you get a chance to play a home game or a road game against Virginia Tech, you're like, oh my gosh, we actually get to play in front of a fired up crowd this week. Pitt players probably get excited to come to Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Nobody goes to their home games.
Right.
So I think they've got that working against them a little bit these days. But ultimately, it's more about Virginia Tech than anything. When you go out there and have a bunch of penalties on third down, or you want to take it back to last year to the Clemson game when you try to play a quarterback who can barely walk for an entire game almost. Your running back you're trying to use as a decoy with 4 carries. You just get thoroughly outcoached by Rutgers. So it's mostly a Virginia Tech thing, to be quite honest with you. Virginia Tech's coaching has not been good enough, and then their players go out and do things like, commit 15-yard penalties on third down. And it's very frustrating because it's such a great fan base, and this fan base deserves a lot more. Exactly. UVA couldn't even sell out their home game against Florida State. Right. And they've got a top 15 team, right? Their fans don't deserve that. Virginia Tech fans deserve it, but they're not getting it. And that's the frustrating part.
Your take on Kyron Drones. Clearly, it's an experiment that hasn't worked out long-term. Look, I like the kid. I think he plays hard. He wears every loss. He wants to be out there. He wants to succeed, but it just hasn't come together for him. Moments here and there where you go, hey, that's what Brett Price saw, but it just hasn't come together for him. Yeah,
you can see the arm talent, but he's just an inconsistent quarterback. And I think it's worse this year because they've plugged him into an offense that he's not suited for. And I worried about this the whole time, and I started writing it. I probably wrote it too much after Montgomery got hired because I think people got tired of hearing it. But Montgomery's offenses historically have gotten worse through the years because once he got to Tulsa, he inherited a really good quarterback, but after that he struggled to recruit like a really top-notch quarterback that makes his offense go. Like his offense is like a jet aircraft, but he's got just doesn't have the right type of engine for it. You have to have the right type of engine to make that thing take off and perform. And he hasn't had that in his offense for a long time. And that's why his offenses have gone downhill over the last, 8 years or so. And I questioned whether he had that type of quarterback when Virginia Tech hired him. I didn't think Drones was that type, and he's not that type. And Drones doesn't need, let's drop back and let's play traditional passing game. He needs smoke and mirrors. Virginia Tech needed a better version of Tyler Bowen, who you could design passing plays that looked like running plays. And I don't mean like your traditional play action stuff that everybody does. I mean, play packages that could be runs or passes and really gets the linebackers and the safeties focused on the running game. And then boom, just like that, you've tricked them and you've got a guy running wide open in the passing game. This timing route stuff, Drones just isn't good at that. He's very inconsistent. When he gets it right, you can see the arm talent and everything, but he's just never been that type of quarterback. So to me, it was always a really curious decision. I know Montgomery was probably not the biggest name you could hire, but it doesn't make sense to hire a big name when the pieces aren't fits. I would have rather hired a nobody whose style of offense fit the quarterback, because at that point, it was February. The transfer portal was closed. There weren't going to be any good quarterbacks there for the summer. You had what you had at that point. You've got to make a hire that fits the personnel that you have. And they didn't do that. I'm thankful Montgomery's here from a head coaching standpoint now, because I think he gives Tech their best chance to win just from that head coaching position.
Right.
But from an offensive perspective, it was always a strange fit, to say the least.
Well, finally, Chris, let me ask you. I really appreciate you jumping on. A lot of people in Texas, does Chris prefer? Let me ask you, maybe you don't care. Do you want more of an offensive-minded new coach or a defensive-minded coach, or are you just worried about the overall guy?
Overall guy. I mean, if you put me two candidates out there, gone to my head and said pick offensive guy or pick defensive guy, I think for TV ratings these days, which is kind of important when it comes to ACC payouts, I think generally the more points that get scored, I bet if you looked at it over a 10-year average, people are more likely to tune into a game that seems like it's going to be higher scoring. But the main thing is to win football games. And if you're 7-1 and your next game, it gets announced it's on ESPN and not the CW, right? So that's the main thing.
That's the main thing.
That's the main thing. I think I get, like, if I wasn't thinking about the television stuff, I would say defensive-minded coach. So that's how we're winning. But I could go either way. I'm going to take whatever best guy I think would be available and not worry about his offensive background or defensive background or whatever. And I guess my main questions for him would be, what staff are you going to bring with you? Like, if there's a defensive-minded coach out there, like if Virginia Tech happened to hire Bob Chesney from JMU, his defenses have always been great. He's a former defensive guy himself. I don't know about their offensive coordinator at JMU. He's one they brought from Holy Cross. Seems like it might have been a jump up a level for him. Certainly, I don't think I would trust him to take another jump up to Virginia Tech. So things like that. So whoever you hire, I really want to have deep conversations about their coaching staff and which ones would be a fit to jump up a level. Now, if you hired another Power 4 coach, that's not as much of an issue because he's probably got a whole bunch of guys on his staff. Then you'd want to have the conversation about, how many coaches on your staff can recruit the 6-hour radius around Blacksburg. So there's a lot of questions like that would have to be asked. But, like I said, preference for me is a defensive-minded football coach. Maybe the best way to go is offensive-minded, but doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. Just hire the best guy you feel like is available.
Yeah, exactly. And I bet you if you did like the research, it would be 50-50 on who hires the best coordinator. An offensive-minded coach coming in,
absolutely.
Is he better at finding a defensive guy, or is a defensive guy better at it probably washes out. Anyway.
That's paralysis by analysis.
Exactly.
That's you can overanalyze. I say this is lead analyst of Tech Sideline.
Yeah,
you can definitely overanalyze things sometimes. Just give me a ball, coach, man.
The lead analyst is telling you can analyze too much. Well, you guys are going to be killing it all week, I know, with the podcast, Chris. I can't wait to watch. And thanks so much for everything you do, man. And thanks for jumping on. A lot of people, and myself included, want to get your take on everything. And we'll see. Everything seems kind of murky, doesn't it? It's murky is a good word.
That's the way it is in a coaching search, man, especially when you've got to wait all year. Like when Fuente got fired, it was like, early November? You didn't have to wait that long.
Yeah.
Pry gets fired, you got to wait 2 months.
That's right.
Or over 2 months.
Play a whole season.
2.5 months, basically. So it's incredibly frustrating, but it's a hole we dug for ourselves. Or it's a hole they dug for us. I'll put it that way.
There you go. So
not us, not the fans. It's not our
Right. All right, brother. Thanks so much for jumping on, man. Great stuff, and I hope you have a great week, and we'll talk again soon.
All right, Rick. Thanks, man. Take care.
All right, brother. Take care. There you go. Chris Coleman. Man, that's good. There you go. And I think that's a great answer about that. It doesn't really matter. Offense, defense, just get the guy in here, get the right guy. And I think he's right. You have to think about that TV ratings thing. You do. We're going to ask a coach coming up here in about 10 minutes. We're going to ask Phil Elmassian what he would do. Great analysis there from Chris. Of course, he's the lead analyst at Tech Sideline. Yeah. Chris Coleman's outstanding. You learn something every time he talks. When he's good at all of it, but when he breaks down like film and he goes into, it's good stuff, man. Joseph, going back to chat here while we wait on Coach Elmassian. Now, Coach Elmassian told me he got his camera working. So we'll see. With Bud Foster on the committee, do I see a defensive coach coming? Maybe. That's not a bad breakdown, Joseph. I mean, I think Bud Foster, though, he just wants the right fit at this point. He still loves this program, man. You can talk to Bud. He's so candid. I got to get Bud on here whenever he has time. I want to get Bud on here. He would jump on the radio show. He has such a genuine passion for that place. All he wants is for it to succeed. He hates this as much as anybody on the list of people to see where it's gone. So, to your point, Joe, I'm sure in his mind, it's always going to be a defensive guy, and that makes sense. It makes sense. Dan Lanning, who is having a great amount of success at Oregon, he was the defensive coordinator for Kirby Smart's national title teams down in Georgia. And he got there. And I remember during his hiring process, he said it earlier this year, he felt like he had a better view of hiring an offensive coach because he wanted to hire somebody to run an offense that he had the most trouble trying to fix and figure out in the SEC. So he had a lot of open-mindedness to it. So from his perspective, he felt like being a defensive coach made it easier for him to find an offensive guy. And you look at Oregon and all the points they score and all the different things they're doing. But I thought that was interesting. So it washes out, I'm sure. I'm sure there's not one advantage over the other. But Chris is probably right, too. An offensive coach seems to be the kind of – but they did that with Fuente. It didn't work. And then Brent Pry was a defensive coach. It didn't work. But there was just two bad fits chosen by the AD who you're going to leave over there, apparently. Hit us up in the McClellan Chiropractic chat room. Many of the questions they get on the text line, the T-shirts have been ordered. I'll check and get the progress report this week. But, T-shirts have been ordered. Let me put those back up here. A lot of people have asked. So let me do that real quick. There you go. That's what they're going to look like right there. Thanks to Top Shelf, Brandon. So there's the T-shirt. It's a good-looking shirt. It was all Brandon, by the way. So they are being made. They are definitely being made. So it's good stuff. John says that's exactly what Bud was saying that he would do if he had succeeded, Coach Beamer. Yeah, see, exactly. Maybe so. Maybe it gives them an advantage. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But from a numbers perspective, probably so. All right, speaking of perspective, because I see him down in the green room, and it's great to be able to say that I see Phil Elmassian because there's the coach joining us here on the program. Good morning.
Are we good?
We're good. If you can hear me, brother, you got me?
I can hear you, but I got an echo.
Uh-oh. Well, we can
Can
see
I take
you.
the earphones off?
Maybe so. See if you can hear me without the earphones. I don't know. Let's see here. Is that better? Is that better or is that worse? What you got?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I've got you. You got me?
Yeah, I got you. Let me adjust my volume.
Okay. All right. Then I'm going to ask you, before we get into all this football stuff, we're going to ask you how your fishing went. I know how your fishing went yesterday. You showed me. Congratulations. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but it's kind of like a delayed echo.
Okay, gotcha. Well, we'll give you. Sometimes that happens.
Okay,
sometimes that happens. Yeah, cool. No worry. But I know you're on the river yesterday. It was a gorgeous day. How much fun was that for you? What'd you end up with? What was the haul yesterday?
Well, the last one I got was probably about a 3-pounder, I think, at least, and it was heavy enough. And,
It was heavy enough, he says. All right, so let's get right into it, Coach. You've been through this. You have been around many programs, and you've seen hirings come and go and so forth. If you were asked, your philosophy or your advice, how would you advise Virginia Tech going forward in the type of head coach that they should be looking for?
Well, the best head coaches I've been around were defensive-minded coaches, believe it or not, and their most important hires were the OC/quarterback coach. Those that when you're putting together a staff, once your quarterback coach, if you're a defensive coach, your quarterback OC, you need that combination in college. I think that was one of Mike Pry's kind of downfall. He hired a tight ends coach, not having worked with quarterbacks, not being that critical. Brian Chris ended up being the quarterback coach. I think the best thing in offense is college. The OC needs to be the quarterback coach. That's number one. Then number two, you've got to go hire an offensive line coach. That my priorities would be, has he played the position? Bill Durkin at Liberty is one of the best offensive line coaches I've coached against and been around. And he played the position. And it's not necessarily on-field coaching, which is critical, the technique fundamentals, but the evaluation of players you have and players you don't have yet.
Yeah, right. That's right.
Or because that's where, to me, it's invaluable. When I'm around offensive line coaches, they're really well organized, good recruiters, very detailed. They know what they're looking for. Of all my experiences, it was easy when I was able to sign Andrew Whitworth for LSU.
Yeah,
because he was a tight end at 300 pounds at 6'6". Valedictorian, great student. So that was easy, no brainer. But for the most part, Rick Trickett was our offensive line coach at LSU. He was Rich Rodriguez's lifeblood. I'll tell you, he misses him at West Virginia. He stayed at Jacksonville. And, I would just give Rick the, hey, what do you think of this kid? I mean, I like him. I think I would never give him a kid that he needs to look at to offer. You go through the crash till you like a kid, then you give it to the position coach. Well, the offensive line coach, that's your second most important hire. And now today, it's also who can you bring with you?
Yeah.
From the other schools. And then the next most important hire is package. That's another, unless you really a lot of experience, have not necessarily have to have played it, but that's another evaluation scenario. You have to have evaluate your current players and also players that you're going to your portal or high school, because that's a lot of mistakes to make. And you have to have a profile. I've had a great picture in my mind from a defensive back standpoint. Two examples. You'll appreciate this.
Yeah.
I'm at Purdue. Our starting safety, Stu Schweigert, All-American.
Yeah.
In the NFL. I think third round draft, played in the NFL for about 10 years. Great athlete. Joe Tiller comes in my office after, I think we beat Notre Dame, and I think we got Arizona. I can't remember the schedule, but Penn State. But he's got to suspend him for a game. I didn't know this. He just walks into my office Friday before the Arizona game. As a matter of fact, we had just beaten Notre Dame.
Right.
And Arizona wasn't very good. So he goes in my office and goes, I got to suspend him. He said, I don't like your backup safety. I said, well, I don't either.
You're not the only one.
Tell me something I don't know. Joe's a great guy. Great guy. And look, on Sundays, he said, I'm looking at the games, and 2 weeks later, Penn State's on the schedule, and they weren't very good. It was one of those years, I think they won 4 games. They were just not very good. As Joe later on in his career. This is 2003. So he said, I'm going to give you 3 quarterbacks. You pick the guy you want because he's going to be your starter. I said, all right. So he gives me 3 quarterbacks. And again, having a lot of experience, having coached, the players you get to coach, they teach you. You get to know what you're looking for because your experience through the players you've coached tells you this is my picture of what I'm looking for. I had Lawyer Malloy at Washington, highest paid 13 a game. I had a walk-on named Jason Doring at Wisconsin, played 8 years in the NFL. So, all right, so I got the 3 quarterbacks. One freshman, redshirt, was a good athlete, but the one I picked was a kid named Kyle Smith, 6'3", 210, probably 5 flat, 4'9", 5 flat. Was a walk-on quarterback in scholarship, and the reason why I took him, from the neck up, he's exactly what I needed.
Right.
I got to get this kid ready. He's never played defense in his life. In 2 weeks, I'm going to get him ready to start against Penn State. And we did it. We got it done. He was smart as a whip. Good decision maker. It's a safety is like quarterbacks. It's a very cerebral position. It's all about decision making. And you got to trust your talent. You got to trust your decisions. You got to trust you have that great trust in your own talent, whatever it is.
Right.
And they're both so the same. They're leaders, they're communicators, they're decision makers. So, and we beat Penn State with a kid. And he ended up starting for him the next year on a really good Purdue team, and he had a hell of a career as a defensive back, as a safety. So that's an example of, you got to have a defensive back coach that if the head coach comes in and says, in 2 weeks, you take 3 quarterbacks, we're expecting to win the game. You got to start. There's not a choice.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about evaluations, and you mentioned people, the type of player, your prototype of player, the kind of player that you want. You can just kind of mold them into that. It sounds like evaluations are an experienced staff. I want to ask you, when you're watching a team play, whether it's Tech or anybody else, Coach, how quickly into a game can you tell immediately if they've evaluated correctly or not? I mean, obviously the results are going to say that, but can you just look at guys and just kind of tell whether they've done the right evaluation?
Well, you got to have your profile. When I look at players in particular, or even defensive backs, first of all, they may not necessarily play a defensive back. That's why it's a projection position. You're going to get a running backs. I love looking at running backs to be safeties because they're decision makers.
Right.
You can actually invite quarterbacks make great safeties because they're decision makers. Wide receivers, I've never really had one to make safety because they're not decision makers. Run down, turn around, catch a ball. Okay. Right. Not a lot of decision. That's the skill level. So you're looking at where are the decision-making positions that you can project, and quarterback and running back is one of them that I will always look at. And if I'm looking at a safety, I'm hoping he does play running back or he does play quarterback. Because the more positions the kid can play, the quote easier the evaluation in terms of decision making, talent. I'll say one thing about speed and the decision making process. This was my strength as a coach. All this credit that I get from Virginia Tech in '93, and I think Doug Foster or any of the coaches that has ever worked with me or for me, the number one thing they learn is personnel and evaluation.
Right.
More than anything else. My junior college experiences with Coach Norton for 4 years really taught me how to evaluate, make decisions. And, when you're so with the defensive backs, particularly, you're looking at speed. Here's the thing about speed. I can judge speed on film. I'll sit there and say, probably 4.65, 4.7. 4.6 is fast. Believe me, I need to be a 4.3, 4.4. Here's the thing. It's not the 40 time, like Bill Walsh said, probably the most overrated statistic.
Yeah.
He said that, and I believe him too. Yep. I do. I want to see how they run, not what they run. As they run on the 40, I'm watching how they run there. And the other thing I want to really evaluate is transition. Whatever that speed is you run. Some of the best safeties I've ever coached ran 4.75, 4.8. Because it's a position that you play fast, but you're never in a hurry.
Right. Yeah. Be quick, but don't hurry. Yeah.
And so what you're looking for is, if you're a 4.8 or a 4.6 or somewhere in between, how fast can you transition into that speed? When football's a game of angles and point A, point B, point C. It's not basketball. It's not circular. And so once I in a stop scenario, and I got to get from point A to point B, how fast can I get into that situation? I'm looking at Wake Forest, Virginia. I'm looking at Virginia's skill level, their running backs and receivers.
Yeah.
The one thing that blew, and I came out right away was, man, I don't know what they run. They may look fast, they may be fast. I know that they transition into their top end speed as well as any college team in the ACC for their talent. I loved how they transition. They get accelerated in a hurry. And one of the things you get to look for, I'll get a little technical, I think you appreciate this. The number one physical area you look for is ankle flexibility. Go watch your basketball team. These guys are going on the court going heel toe, heel toe, heel toe. Okay? They don't have the flexible ankles. You're working off the front half of your foot.
It's true.
Okay?
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're loading the large muscles in the leg. We call it dorsiflexion when that toe can point towards the body. So when you watch guys work off the front, not on their toes, but they're on that front half of the foot. Man, and that Coach Saban always said kids got stiff ankles. That doesn't mean you can't play, but here's the issue. When you have stiff ankles, your change of direction is going to be a little suspect. Okay? And your transition to your top end speed is not going to be as good. Okay? As good as it's. So if you're a 4.7, you've got to be able to transition to a 4.7 in a hole. And so those are the things that you really. And I always, when I evaluated, I evaluated the athletes first, not position. I think coaches make a mistake. They look at the position first. Forget about evaluating the athlete.
Yeah, that's a great
point. I call the football athleticisms. Flexible ankles, flexible hips, body balance, growth potential, transition in the top end speed, upper body stiffness. You don't want to see armpits when the kid's running. We call them coffee grinders.
Right.
Coffee grinding. You want to see a really body that's very compact as they're moving. And another example, I get to Wisconsin, my first day on the job. I get there on Friday, walk in the office in January. Barry gives me 4 DBs to look at. They got 1 scholarship left. He goes, here's 4 DBs are on the campus now. You pick the guy. Pick the guy you want. Well, I get the statistic on this one kid, East Hazelwood High in St. Louis. They tell me he's 5'11", 185. Okay. Well, from the lower body on the field, he looked like 185 pounds. He had really lowest kid.
Yeah.
Here's the key. East St. Louis, St. Louis, his wide receivers going to Ohio State. So he's got traffic coming into high school. No one recruiting. He's got one offer, Missouri. He had to. It's in state. I'm looking at all 4 kids, and this kid, Lamar Fletcher, plays quarterback, safety, punt return, kick return, never leaves the field. I'm watching game tape. Another mistake. Young coaches, they watch highlight tapes.
Right.
Huge mistake. Big mistake. They're too lazy today, a lot of them.
That's right.
You got to be there Sundays and Saturdays and watch those game tapes. And that's another conversation. So I'm watching the game tape, and by the first half, I'm going running for touchdowns, throwing for touchdowns, punt returns, plays, kickoff return, big plays. It's a playmaker, period. I said, I told Barry, I said, this is the guy, probably 4'6", but if he can't play corner, we'll make him a safety. That's always my rule, 2 position projection. If he can't play, the rule of recruiting, bad recruiting is not that he can't play, he can't be moved.
Right.
He's eating a scholarship. And now you got NIL money, and you're wasting thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars on mistakes. Not that the NIL would put any more pressure. It's a scholarship's a scholarship. Okay? If I'm not offering you a scholarship, you're not getting the NIL money here.
Yeah, that's right.
Put the horse in front of the cart. So the kid we ended up taking him, but here's the kicker. Kid comes to the office. He's 155 pounds and he's like 5'9". The wind blew his butt in the door. I'm telling you. On the day when you get a new job, custodians come in and they'll repaint your office.
Yeah.
I told mine, I go, leave the buckets. You made me back. Because they had fired every DB coach they've ever had. Guys, just leave the buckets. Okay.
Very not happy with you. Coach Alvarez not happy with you.
My first decision was to take because the other kids were 200 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
I take the 5'9", 180, 155 pound kid, but I trust what I saw. He's a playmaker. Long and the short, in 3 years at Wisconsin. I coached him for 2. I'm not for LSU. In 3 years at Wisconsin, 25 interceptions and 7 for touchdowns. First team All-American, first round draft choice.
That's right. You had him right. Phil Elmassian joining us on the program. I love that, just to hear that breakdown about, body types. But, if a guy can't play, you've given him the scholarship. In this case, you give him the money. Let him play. Move him somewhere where he can help you. Why don't more coaches do that, do you think?
They don't. They'll look at the film and they'll go, well, he's a tailback. Well, that's all he plays. Are you kidding me? Give him to me. I tell every coach, if you tailbacks you don't want, quarterbacks you don't want, athletic quarterbacks, you give them to me.
Yeah.
Tight ends you don't want, you give them to me. Those 3 positions. I'll make a football team out of those 3 positions. On defensive team, I promise you.
Yeah.
And then you want to recruit as big a corner. You start. I had a 5'8" corner. You got to have the strength and the liabilities, and the strengths have to offset your liability. I played with a 5'8" corner in Nebraska. He did a great job. He did like a 46-inch vertical jump.
Wow.
He played at 6'3", 6'4", and we're covering all those receivers in the Big 12. So, you got to watch the whole game film. What you're dealing with, everybody can see the strength. You got to know what the weaknesses are, and all of them are going to happen. Most of the places, there's a reason why I always said when I was at Marshall or some of the schools that weren't Nebraska or LSU or, there's going to be something wrong with a lot of them. You got to figure out how can you work with that liability and make sure it's minimized and strength as their talent. And sometimes a position change can't hide non-talent, but it can magnify a kid's strength a lot of times. And I think that is the fun part of coaching at a Virginia Tech. Because if you're coaching at an LSU particularly, like I've always said, and I've said this numerous times, there's not many 5-star cats around. You think it's easy recruiting for Alabama and LSU? It's harder.
Yeah, absolutely.
Harder than Virginia Tech. Way harder. It's not that you have margin for error, but you have projection. You can go around and have fun with it and go, it's tailback. That's the fun part of it, especially when they get to.
Is Bill Walsh in your mind? You bring that up. I was thinking about, I can't remember the coach who said it, but somebody said they thought he was the greatest evaluator of people on film, because if he'd have went by metrics, nobody had this wide receiver out of Mississippi Valley State by the name of Jerry Rice on their whole draft board. And yet he takes him in the first round, and he's the greatest wide receiver of all time. I mean, just going into what you're saying, you think about all these other people that were employed at the time going, oh, my goodness.
Well, the great evaluator, Jimmy Johnson, good, NFL, tremendous middle round evaluator.
Yes, he was.
Your triplets, your quarterback, tailback, receiver, I call them triplets. Okay, they're the ones that when you get to the Super Bowl, they're going to win it for you. The other guys, they get you to the playoffs.
They get you to the playoffs.
You're going to have out of 11 guys on defense, you're going to have 4 playmakers, and the rest of the guys you say, hey, play for us.
Right.
If they make plays, it's bonus. But you play for us. Don't start playing for the opponent. And that's what you want. But I do think when they're, whether it's, I heard you with Chris and offense, defense, and coach, the best coaches I've been now are defensive coaches, head coaches.
It's interesting, yeah.
Because they were more teamwork. Today, you got to really be careful with a spread offensive coach, because the way sometimes is, you look at the guy Southern Cal. Okay, you look at Rich Rodriguez particularly early in his career, and I was with him. How the spread people practice is not conducive to defensive development. That's not a cop-out. It is a fact.
So I'm getting washed out by the sun here, but I'm still with you, Coach.
Yeah,
I had a question in chat for you from Wayne. He says, Coach, who is the most underrated player that played for you? I guess a guy like you're just talking about that maybe you saw something in that ended up being, somebody that was special, or somebody you felt was underrated coming out that you liked a lot.
Oh, I've got a bunch of them.
Yeah.
My whole career is based on guys that, and I was very fortunate. I could trust my evaluation, and more importantly, they understood when I would sit down with them. Here's your strength. Here's your weaknesses. Here's your liability. Here's what we got to make sure you're playing to your strengths. The number one thing with those guys who are, like Scott Jones at Virginia Tech in 1993 was a walk-on, a fifth-year senior walk-on. And I told him in the preseason, you're number 3. I'm going to look at 2 freshmen in front of you. But the persistence, the intelligence, the confidence, we stayed with it. And next thing you know, by the time we're playing Pitt, the second game, he's starting. And he was one of the most valuable defensive back. And we had Tyrone Creeper. They voted him the most valuable DB. So, but the thing is really, it's the neck up.
Right.
I could go through a bunch of names, the Virginia Tech players, Wisconsin, but when it's all said and done, I can have a 1AA body, but I need a 1A head.
Right.
Okay. I don't need a lot. Whatever talent, the measures you have on talent, I've always believed just give me enough. Give me enough, and give me a kid that hates to lose, that absolutely cannot live without football, could not live without it. And he is a good competitive student. That's the first place I live. If you're a good decision maker on the field, you'll be a good decision maker on the field. It doesn't better the player. And this is my experience that I've had. And I'm not talking about the A, B, C. I was the best C student William Murray ever had. That's it. Don't forget my alumni with George Washington and Thomas Jefferson. Come on now. I was one of the best C students that ever graduated at William Murray. Best.
I was going to say, Coach froze up there.
The guy that's competitive in the classroom. is going to be disciplined, doing things that you're not supposed to do when no one's watching. Those are the intangibles that you'll win. It can't equate to total wins and losses, but you're going to win games. You'll win games. If you don't lose, you get fired, I'll fire.
Yeah, right.
I got no problems getting fired. I go in that locker room, look that kid in the eye, and can't wait to coach him on Monday. There's a lot of coaches in programs, they lose, they go in that locker room, and after the game, they won't even talk to the kids, and on Monday, they can't stand. They're not looking forward to practice.
Coach, let me ask you, you had so much success evaluating. You mentioned it earlier with the money involved. Now, guys are getting paid. How would you have to adjust things? It wouldn't change your evaluation necessarily, but a kid's motivation could change pretty quickly, right? Just because of his bank account. What do you think? How would you adjust to that?
I think the number one thing, again, why you need the general manager. Years ago in recruiting, your pitch into the home was, you get to talk to the academic people. You get to talk to the trainer. You get to talk to the strength coach.
Yeah.
Okay? That was huge back then. All this information so they can make a decision. Now, you get to talk to the NIL people, which is the GM. And so we think the best way to do this now is make sure if you're in a home that you deem, Nick Saban was great. He could care less about the stars. He could care less. He watched every player, graded every player.
Right.
And he could care he would deem who the 5-star was, who the 4-star was. He was, guys that could impact the program. We had a great numbering system, which was off the chart. Okay. And the only thing I would make sure is, especially the assistant coach, because you've got coaches, just like in the NFL. The coaches don't care about their contract.
Right.
I don't care. Not my business. Administrators administrate, coaches coach, and players play and don't cross the line. You can't cross the line in the administrative part. What you got to hope for is you can go into that home, and hopefully if you're into the top number 3 kid in the state of Virginia, you better have the resources. You're not being, unless it's family ties, you're probably not getting the front door.
Right.
So we walk in and say, look, we have the resources. I wouldn't be here if we didn't. Okay? Hopefully, they're considering Virginia Tech because they want to. They're glad you're here. They're happy Virginia Tech's recruiting them. And now, this is the icing on the cake. Yes, we have the resources for you. When you get on this campus, I wouldn't negotiate it. If I had the skills to do it or the license to do it, I would never negotiate anything to put them on that campus. Scholarship. Hey, I'm going to offer you. Our head coach has to see you.
Right.
We want you on the campus. I would tell my players, if you don't like this kid, you let me know and I'll cut him. I'll cut him loose. Your team.
It's interesting. It makes the evaluations now. I mean, they've always been important, but it makes it even more important. And you mentioned Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Rick, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No.
I don't think it's any more. It's always been important.
It has.
Okay. You guys had a great conversation with Chris about Tyrone Jones. I didn't know this. He had 2 starts. That's all he started, 2 games. You don't have enough to evaluate him. You have to have the best way to evaluate. Look at the difference between Tyrone Jones and the Morris kid in Virginia. The Morris kid had 19 starts. Had 13 at North Texas and had 6 at TCU. And at North Texas, he won and was productive. Well, that's a standard. Give me a minimum of 18 starts and come from a winning program. Okay?
Yeah.
2 starts at Baylor. Well, let me tell you what. If you got 2 starts at Baylor that first spring, I'm having 2 scrimmages and that jersey's coming off.
Right.
And I'm not trying to evaluate the toughness. I need to make sure he understands what time it is. And what happens is they don't take the jersey off a kid like that. He gets into a game, then Sunday they find out what he can't do at the expense of a loss.
It's interesting. It's fascinating to me about it, and how quickly into a game can you tell evaluations were blown? How quickly can you watch a game and go,
it doesn't take a game for me.
Yeah.
No. I am not going to find out at the expense of the law. Now,
Right.
there are certain kids that I thought could. I had the safety. Joe wasn't well shot in the butt about him.
Right.
I liked the kid. I thought we could get something out of him. And, he was an upperclassman. Not that matters, but I just believe we could win him. That's the bottom line. And we lose to Bowling Green, and he really makes a huge blunder. And I thought I was going to get fired.
Right.
But the next week I started a true freshman named Bernard Pollard, who ended up being the second-round draft choice in the NFL. So it doesn't take me long. Trust me, I'll fix it. Because you better fix it. The head coaches. Here's the thing, too. When you lose a football team, the easiest, fastest way to lose a team
How's
is
that?
put players on the field that the really good players don't belong there.
That's a great point.
The easiest way to lose trust of your team, the fastest way, because players, the good ones, they know.
They know, don't they?
I
Yeah.
don't care what sport is, they know. They know who can win. They know why is this guy playing this guy? One more example, I'll let you go with the evaluation.
No, it's great. It's great, Coach. I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
I get to Syracuse with Paul Pasqualoni. Paul, when he was an assistant, signed a kid named Carlos Jackson, who was the first team parade All-American out of DeMatha High. Great kid, fun kid to be around. But he's passed away now. It's sad. But I get to Syracuse. The secondary, they had like 8 interceptions a year before, won 6 games, but they weren't very productive in the secondary. Well, I get hired to clean it up. So we're going through the spring, and there's this one kid who had a scholarship, left the program, but came back as a specialties player named Tony Montemore. 5'10", 5'11-ish, 195 pounds, could really run fast, but smart. You talk about one-time guy, fun to be around, always had a smile on his face, and a great listening skill. And it's a lot. Once you showed him, rep him, lot, done. So at the end of the spring, Paul's going, okay, the depth chart. Now, the free safety, Tim Sanquist, comes in my office one time and goes, Coach, I got to play with Tony Montemore. He wants to play with this guy, which that's a lot. So I said, all right, well, I go in the evaluations. I told Paul, I said, I'm going to start Tony Montemore over the American. He ripped into my blood. What's been chewed by some good ones around me. And it's a lot smaller than it was yesterday. And I'm telling you what, it was. I got witnesses in this happening. So, but I love the kid. I trusted the kid, and he was a good player. And we're playing Florida State. We had a Big East schedule. West Virginia was really good. Pitt was good. So I told Paul, I said, can we talk after the Saturday? That's all. I said, you're the head football coach. I went in the office, and I told Paul, I said, Paul, I said, if we don't win 10 games with Tony Montemore, you can fire me, and you can put it in my contract.
Wow.
Not embellishing. I said, because if I start the other guy, you're going to fire me anyway.
Yeah.
And to Paul's credit, let me do it. And we went 10-101. We won 10. We beat Florida. Spurrier, we beat Florida at home. We beat Ohio State in the Hall of Fame Bowl with the kid. And we had a great year. We had 27 interceptions.
Well, that's a great point you make. And you're exactly right. I think that's where coaches are. I don't know if they're short-sighted or they don't anticipate that, because the locker room knows, nothing else, the guys they want to go to battle with on a Saturday. And if they're not getting those best teammates, they're not therefore going to put out their best effort, because they're wondering why that was not playing. Right.
That was one thing through my career of going into programs that, were failed at, whether it's positionally or a coordinator, is it's all about personnel. It's all about finding not the best guys, but the right guys.
Right.
Finding the right people that have a chemistry. You look at two positions, O-line and DB, you've got to have chemistry in there. Those guys got to like each other. They got to bond. They got to go out together.
That's right.
Those 5 offensive linemen, that's one unit. Those 4 DBs, that's one unit. And that's why I think those two positions, you better listen. No disrespect, but the receiver coach, the running back coach, the tight end coach, and the D-line coach, go recruit.
Yeah.
Go recruit it.
Yeah.
O-line, DB, quarterback. Everyone's got to recruit, but still, there's certain positions you can't miss on, and that's quarterback, DB, cannot miss on.
That's very interesting. And it gives us something to keep an eye out going forward, right? Whether it's Virginia Tech, Virginia, whoever you're following, see how those position groups are performing on Saturday. And I guarantee if you went through the top 10 right now, you would look at those 4 position groups and say they probably did a pretty good job with their recruiting and investing in those 4 position groups.
Well, in 2-3 weeks, I'm going back to Madison because they're having a reunion of our 99 Rose Bowl. We beat UCLA.
Oh, cool.
The Stanford Rose Bowl, which we beat. Only school in the history of the Big Ten at that time that won back-to-back Rose Bowls.
That's right.
Never been done before. So we're having a reunion. And I'll tell you, that we went those 2 years. When I got hired, we went from bad to okay. But those 2 years, we had a bunch of freshmen, redshirt freshmen, and sophomores, and they got developed. And we had a big offensive line, had a great offensive line. Of course, had Ron Day at the running back, high school. And the DBs, like I said, we played Purdue 2 years in a row, and Jamar Fletcher had 2 interceptions for touchdowns in consecutive games. And they turned the game around. Punt returns for touchdowns and interceptions for touchdowns turn games around. They're big momentum swing changes in the game. And when you have those 2 positions solidified, you got a chance. Because you're the last line of defense.
Yeah, yeah. I remember those Wisconsin teams well. I remember what you did. And boy, you blew UCLA out. And then you beat something. I mean, that wasn't even, And then Stanford, like you said, those and Ron Dane. It doesn't hurt to be able to have that guy back there to hand the ball to, does it?
Oh, well, like I said, you're talking about a road grade. It was fun. Woo. Usually when we played people, the next week they lost. They're in the ice tubs.
That's right.
Their defenses are in the ice tubs on Sunday.
No question. And you never got the offensive line wrong at Wisconsin. It was always producing the most NFL players, right? The evaluation of those 5 every year. It was crazy.
Yeah. Well, again, the criticism I have of Virginia Tech, they're still not running Tyrone Jones enough on the early downs to make sure they got to make sure they're in a 3rd and 4, 5 or less situation, especially when they cross that 40. Because you got 4 downs to get the first. The worst play that happened to them, you talk about Lombardi always said 6 plays will determine the outcome of the game.
That's right.
Well, one of them, they get the interception, and Chris brought this up. I'm not trying to review the game, but they get the interception at the 4-yard line. It's 27-20. This is it. This is the momentum change. Okay? And on 4 downs, they got to kick a field goal? Now, okay, great. I can give credit to Louisville's defense, but let me tell you, I don't care who you play. You put a ball on a 4-yard line.
You got to score. Yeah.
The percentages goes to the offense.
That's right.
Because your defense, you are just trying to hold them to a field goal. But it's like, I don't think Louisville's that good.
No. And you told me before the Wake game, you and I were talking after you were on last week, you said Wake is better than NC State.
Oh, without a doubt.
You said Tech's going to have to play well. They're better than NC State. I know they're playing at home, but you told me, and sure enough, I mean, Tech made too many mistakes, and they lost to a team that was better than the team they played the week before. So you were all over it.
Yeah, after watching the Georgia Tech game, Wake Georgia Tech game, I mean, I was in shock. I went, they're physical, they play hard. And that wasn't just the Georgia Tech game. You look at the Virginia Tech game. This is who they are. That's not a one and done now. You know, that's not a fluke that they should be Georgia Tech. And the other thing, the quarterback, he is very accurate. I think he's one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the conference.
He's tough too.
If Clemson had him, I'm not a public fan.
No, me either. Never have been.
Clemson had him. They may have a little better record. I believe that. I really believe that.
No, 100%. You're right. And it looks like now they went and got that coach from Washington State, and he has that mentality. He didn't play well out there. It's going to play very well in the ACC because that's the kind of football he likes. You can tell how much physicality he brings as a head coach to his philosophy out there.
Yeah, you know, the game, both teams, you look at Virginia Tech and you say, okay, all right, you look at Wake's quarterback, you look at Drones as the quarterback, Wake's quarterback outplayed him. Okay? You look at the defensive lines and scrimmages. This is one of Virginia Tech against NC State had like numerous disruptive plays. Last game, they only had 2 TFLs in the second. They only had 2 disruptive plays.
Right.
Which, so now they're ahead of the sticks. Wake's ahead of the sticks. Sometimes Coach Oates always said that it's a bit of a fact. A TFL could be just as bad as a turnover to your point because you're losing field position. You're playing behind the stick and you're losing field position. It's a double duty to a not necessarily a tackle for a loss, particularly.
Right.
It's not a good feeling, trust me.
Yeah.
But that's that's it. I think the thing with Virginia Tech, whether they get an offensive coach, D coach, the GM, even if they hire the GM, Richard, I'll be honest with you, that guy's not going to sit there and good to be the king. He knows he's going to have to work with the head football coach.
Right.
But the head football coach, he better be able to come in with a plan with this is how we're going to evaluate.
Exactly.
This is how we're going to evaluate. This is how we're going to break down the evaluation. In each position, these are what I'm looking for in each position from a skill set. This is what I'm looking for physically in each position. That you have a profile, and you never say never because this game is not basketball where height and all those things are really great. You still got Muggsy Bogues can still play.
That's right.
There's always exceptions to the rule.
Always exceptions to the rule.
When a head coach have a good rating system, make sure with each position hire, he knows the profile that they're going to. Coach Saban, if you were the DB coach for Coach Saban, Coach, this is what I've always said. If he,
sure.
If you respected it.
Well, it's good stuff, man. It's an ongoing education when we visit with Coach Elmassian. And listen, man, I appreciate you jumping on, staying on a little extra. It was a lot of fun. And we're going to do this every week as long as you still want to do it.
I would enjoy that. Especially Greg Roberts. I tell you, Greg was very encouraging. I said, Greg, first of all, I said, look, this isn't a contract dispute. There's no contract involved in this.
That's right.
He was very encouraging. And
Greg's great. Greg is great. Greg Roberts is great. He is.
Yeah, I'll be on at 5:30
okay.
WFIR tonight.
Okay, great. Yeah, be sure to. He's done a great job with that show.
Yeah.
Yes. Coach, thanks so much, man. And we'll
Rick,
talk about the week.
Take too much of your time.
You never take up my time. This is great, man. I learned so much. It's great. It's awesome. Awesome.
My dog died, so and my wife's not a football person. I don't have a whole lot of people talk football.
We'll help feed your hunger.
You may sit there on the third Monday and go, okay, we've had enough. I'll see you next year.
No, that's great. It's great. No, we love it, Coach, and I appreciate you so much, man.
Take care.
All right, take care. There, we'll see you next week. That's Phil Elmassian. How good was that, huh? That's awesome. You learned a lot right there, man. It may have been subtle, but you learned a lot. I love that. Valuations. What have we been talking about? Brent Pry did not get the evaluations right. And that's what's come back to cost him his job. And he can tell immediately who does and who doesn't have the evaluations correct. And breaking it down right there. And I love what he said. Think about that. And this is what Virginia Tech did throughout Coach Beamer and Coach Foster, right? You would recruit guys, evaluate them, and he didn't care about their star. How many walk-ons had great careers at Virginia Tech? How many walk-ons became mega stars in that defense or that offense for Virginia Tech? Because they would move them around and they looked for things that maybe other schools weren't looking at. I mean, there's a litany of just. I mean, you could go. You have to have 2 notebooks to fill it up. But in any event, you learn so much when you have guys like Chris and Coach Elmassian on. That's great stuff, man. It really does. It makes you think about the game a little more deeply. Makes you think about what you're watching a little more when you go out there. Smart players show up by watching the entire game film instead of watching highlights. It sounds like something with common sense, but Coach said he knows, right? He can tell when it's happening. You have 2 new folks that have jumped on to sponsor the program. We want to thank Lawson's Mobile Home Supply. Since 1997, they've been the place to go for manufactured home parts. Give James a call, 540-381-8011. They're at 300 North Franklin Street in Christiansburg. James Lawson. Thank you, James. And the NRV Super Bowl. 25 years they've been in business, and congratulations to Todd Jones. He bowled a 300 and then a 299. They got the Halloween special going, the Boogie Bowl, 9 to 11, $40 per lane, up to 8 bowlers. So that's what, $5 a piece? 540-382-5525. So thanks to Lawson's and thanks to the NRV Super Bowl. So I had to move again because the sun found me. I do have a shade, just haven't put it up yet. Thanks to Travis Williams, everybody, Professional Door Incorporated, sponsoring our text line, 391-0788. You see it right here, see? 38 years in business, garage doors better than anybody, right? Located right across from New River Community College up there in Dublin, Route 100. National Bank, member FDIC, my bank for the last 35 years. They are the exclusive banking partner here at the program. Ryan Pry, the attorney. He's got our BDST question of the week. You'll see him at 701 West Main Street in Radford. State planning, things of that nature. He's your guy. He's terrific. He's also an Eagles fan, so he's probably mad at me since the Broncos won yesterday. Thanks to Pulaski County Sports and Entertainment. Jonathan Sweet came on last week and was just last Thursday was just dynamic, and people got excited, man. Just like talking to a coach. You get that kind of enthusiasm from somebody like Jonathan, you're going to succeed, and they are. Pulaski County is expanding, and it's going to help out everybody. I love the fact that you hear so many different communities throughout the NRV working together instead of looking at it as a competition. They're not. And that was something that Jonathan wanted to highlight. That was terrific. McClellan Chiropractic, our chat line buzzes every day thanks to Mark Hundley, the people right off of Pepper's Ferry Road. He's got all of your equipment that you're ever going to want over there. And Family Fencing, thanks to Jason Green and Company. Free quotes. They have payment plan options. It doesn't matter the type of fencing. Doesn't matter what kind of fence you're looking for. Give them a call. They want to come help you with your privacy, with lining your property, whatever it might be. So thank you to everyone sincerely who is taking care of the program. Appreciate that. Couldn't do the show without you, and the fact that you had that much faith to jump on and help support with your sponsorship is great. And thanks to everybody who's helping with the show. Remember, go watch, like, share our links each and every day. We're gaining subscribers every week. It's a climb every week, and on our way to 1,000. Remember, if one of you who are subscribed gets one other person to do it for free, then we're going to get to 1,000 very quickly. So please like, subscribe, and share our content. And there are ways that you can contribute if you so desire. They have super chats. They give you options on there. Like Wayne, I think Wayne's the first one to jump on and do that. So thank you so much, Wayne, from Ohio. See, he doesn't hold Broncos against me for, beating his Browns each and every year in the playoffs in the 80s. But I've said this a lot. One of the things that I missed most about the 7 months or so that I didn't do the show from radio to now is what I learned from you as an audience and your great points in our discussions, because, we're all just kind of sitting around the water cooler together and valuing one another's opinions, something that the world needs to do a lot more of. But the education I get from people like Chris today and Phil Elmassian, man, he takes you. And what he said about Bill Walsh, and many coaches have said that he might be the greatest evaluator. Bill Parcells, was terrific, but he always gave credit to Bill Walsh, John Madden, because nobody had Jerry Rice on their radar. Nobody. He even got questioned by his own draft experts, his scouting, the college scouting, when he had him down. He had Jerry Rice's name down before they even started the serious prep. We're going to get Jerry Rice at Mississippi Valley State. Coach, we were at his pro. We had him at the – he didn't run. He didn't run well. He was slow. He runs routes that nobody else is running. He has hands that nobody else has. Turned in the card very quickly when it got around to them. Jerry Rice ends up being the greatest wide receiver in the history of professional football. Just one example. And what he said about the middle rounds, the evaluation, Jimmy Johnson's Cowboy teams. Yeah, they had Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin, but those linemen and the people they built, they had just an unbelievable scouting department. And watching what Coach said there really stood out to me. I'm still thinking about that, Talking to a kid, you can get an idea of what they are from the neck up, between the ears, right? But when you watch a kid play, you can tell what kind of football stuff he has about him. That was really, really, really awesome. Really awesome. And don't just be pigeonholed into keeping a guy in a position he may not be able to play. We recruited him. He's here. Let's move him. Let's make him helpful here. It's what Coach Beamer did all the time. And I think that's very interesting. And maybe we've lost sight of that a lot. Some of these young coaches that aren't successful, that may have been successful at other stops, maybe they don't do that. You have to make the right evaluations, but you also have to make the right adjustments on those evaluations if it doesn't seem to be going well at certain spots. So, pretty cool. Pretty cool. But, recapping the weekend in the ACC in particular, Virginia's really good offensively. They're going to be a problem, and I'm not sure Virginia loses the rest of the year. We talked about this, that this was the one game that they had. This was the one game that they had that you had to look at and you had to go, okay, let's think about where we are and what we could end up being. And I think Virginia might be there now. As crazy as it sounds, in this pivotal year. Now, they are off this week, right? Yeah, they are off this week. So they've beaten Louisville. And They have Washington State coming in on the 18th. They'll be favored in that one. They go to North Carolina. They're going to be favored in that one. Now, they do have to travel across country and go to California. Just because of everything involved, that's going to be an interesting test for them. They have Wake in Charlottesville, and Coach Elmassian will be the first to tell you that won't be easy. Now, the one that might get them is the game at Duke on the 15th of November. Duke is really good. Duke's starting to turn it on to a different level. And then they host Virginia Tech on the 29th after their last bye. So, no guarantee. But here they are, tied with Duke atop the ACC at 3-0. Mind-blowing. If Georgia Tech and Miami are the best two teams, Virginia's not too far behind. And kudos to Tony Elliott. They had everything against them, just like Brent Pry. Everything to prove. And they're doing it. Tech did not. Tech did not. And now we're seeing the scurry with this season. An unexpected high down at North Carolina State. You come back and you get beat at home by Wake. Just unbelievable. I would be remiss, two things here. I'd be remiss if I didn't congratulate, let me get this young man's name right here, the Western Carolina quarterback, Teron Dickens. Now, Teron Dickens you've never heard of, but now you have because he made college football history on Saturday. Teron Dickens was playing, a past Virginia Tech opponent this year, Wofford. Maybe the worst program in the country. Dickens went 46 for 46 throwing the football, shattering the NCAA record. How about that? 46 of 46 against Wofford. Wow. But I had to share that because that's terrific. That's mind-blowingly terrific. It really is. Hey, I made it, by the way. Very honored. Steve and everybody over at Montgomery County Chamber. Big Dog Sports Talk with Rick Watson is now an official member of the Chamber. There you go. Can you see that? See it right there? Thank you, Steve. Appreciate that. A great meeting. We're going to let people know about their great announcements that they have, and they're going to help us. And that's great stuff, man. Had a great meeting, and I was honored, to be honest with you. I'm honored to be asked, honored to be considered, and thank you. Yeah, absolutely. That's 100%. 100%. That's right. On, please. Been on 7 weeks, and we're moving and shaking things. Yeah. Good stuff. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. That kid will be getting paid mad NIL money next year. He might, yeah, if he keeps on that trajectory. 46 of 46, you can't do that in a video game. Jeez. Paul says, yeah, Virginia's good, but if they lose their quarterback. Yeah, and that's true, and that's true with every team, right? That changes a lot of things. But the thing they have going for them, Paul, as good as that quarterback is, they're predicated on running the football more now than they have been in recent years. They have 2 running backs that you would want in Blacksburg or anywhere. And that quarterback does a lot of his damage because of what he can do out of the pocket. They want to run, and they do. And that's how they're winning. But there's no question, if you lost it's a collegiate level. Coach Elmassian just talked about it, right? You lose your quarterback, it's almost impossible to come back from. Depending on your depth and all that, I get it. But I mean, 46 out of 46, you can play, whatever video game you want, the old school games, and try to do that. You can't do it. And he's out there doing it in a real game. Go Wofford. Terriers fever. This is why when people were asking, hey, you're not going to do evaluation of the Wofford game? No, I'm really not. Yeah. A lot of issues there with Wofford football. But we'll see how it plays out. Duke went out and manhandled California. They manhandled Syracuse. These are 2 road games. And I know they're not like, powers in college football right now, but you go on the road like that, one coast to the other, that's pretty impressive. Duke had no problem. Duke is emerging. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but Duke is emerging. In the ACC, I wrote about this in the Patriot a couple weeks ago. It's impressive. Florida State lost to Virginia, hurt them, but the league is competitive, man. North Carolina notwithstanding. Geez, Clemson had 4 touchdowns in the first quarter. Is that right? That doesn't look like it's going to work at all, does it? I don't know whether you'd call it a gimmick. Maybe it was, or maybe there was enough selling there to where you had people in the athletic department who just either didn't care or they just bought it hook, line, and sinker. But that's not going to work, is it? It's not going to work for Bill Belichick down there, I don't think. The sideshow is bigger than the program right now with Jordan. It's just, we'll talk to Marva about it tomorrow. But, yeah, that's not getting better. They've been so bad. They've lost every game against an FBS opponent by 25 or more points. And Clemson is no great shakes this year. It's not like this is a Clemson of the past. Heck, they've been struggling. They've been one of the biggest disappointments. Well, Phil Steele will tell you they're the biggest disappointment of the year. And they went in there and looked just like this was a Clemson undefeated team ranked number 1 in the country. It was 4 touchdowns in the first quarter against Carolina. Just lights out. And it's about lights out for us here for another day. $50 million buyout, Morris. That's how James Franklin still has a job. They're scurrying around that program today. It has to be one of the worst losses in Penn State football history. UCLA is a wreck of a program. They were 25.5-point favorites, and UCLA scored 42 points and beat them. So now the joke was not only is James Franklin losing all the big games, now he's losing games that's almost guaranteed. So his tenure could be on the rocks. But then again, he's got, apparently, according to Peeps, he's got a $50 million buyout. Nice business decision there, PSU. So tomorrow we got Marvin. I think Jermaine's on tomorrow. David Smith, Mike Burnham. John says, "Is Chapel Bill?" I like that. Nicely done. Is Chapel Bill letting his girl call the offense? The only thing that Jordan calls is what time we go to bed, what kind of brunch we're going to have, and whether or not she's going to smell like strawberries. We're on to the next opponent. Jordan's on to the next fragrance. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks to Chris Coleman, Phil Elmassian. Please, again, subscribe to the channel if you're not. Get other folks to do that if they haven't. It's free, and we need it. We get to 1,000. We're good for 3 years. Yes, Paul. Strawberries. Next question. No more questions. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your Monday. Hope we made your day a little better. You made mine. So did Chris and Coach Elmassian. We'll see you on Tuesday, everybody. Take care.